There was an email sent out to all federal employees this past weekend, and it asked, what have you accomplished? What have you been doing? Give me the weekly report. I want to know. And who wants to know? OPM wants to know. Basically, Elon Musk wants to know. This is being backed by the Trump administration in order to be more aggressive towards the federal workforce. And it all started when President Trump publicly praised Musk, but he encouraged him to be more aggressive. So what does all this mean? Well, it's yet another unprecedented move where you have a private sector leader coming into the public sector and using authority that we didn't even know he had. And if you ask anyone at the White House, he doesn't have any authority. But you know what he has? Elon Musk, that is. Do you know what he has? He has influence. He has a tremendous amount of influence where it seems like 95, 99% of whatever he decides is backed by President Trump. The email will probably look a little something like this. Send 5 bullets of what you have accomplished and CC your manager. So what about the federal employees that are on leave? And is this even legal? Now, sure, Elon Musk has taken this approach with his private companies, and that makes sense because that's the private sector. Now, I don't think this will be difficult for federal employees to do. In most offices, they're doing this already. They're not sending it to OPM. They're sending it to their supervisor, to their manager. Most teams that I know of in the federal government, there is a requirement to send up a weekly status report of your achievements. What have you been working on? But this has never been the responsibility of OPM. And what OPM and what Elon Musk seems to be doing now is circumventing the entire leadership chain of command, whatever you want to call it. They're going around it and they're asking the employee directly. This sends a clear message to management, to leadership. We do not trust you. We do not respect you. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and micromanage the situation from our level, and we'll determine what is right, and we'll determine if it's adequate or not. Speaking of firings, on February 12th, unions sued to stop what they're calling a mass employment fraud. The main reason they're calling it a fraud is because of the language in the termination letter. The language states that the federal employee had poor performance, and the vast majority of the time, that is founded to be untrue. How is it untrue? Because in the government, oftentimes they do mid-year performance reviews. They do annual performance reviews. And people have outstanding block checked, meaning that they had outstanding performance. So if you take that review and then you take your termination letter and you look at them side by side, something's not adding up. So they're calling it a fraud. And it does matter in some situations. It's not just a matter of disrespect. It matters when it comes to filing for state unemployment. Every state has their own rules and regulations, so it matters. And the curious thing about it is they didn't have to include that language. You can include whatever language you want. These are at-will employees. You can include whatever language. You can just say, hey, we were coming through the front door swinging an axe, and you got in the way, and you were easy to cut and terminate, and that's why you're getting the boot. Put whatever language you want in there. That would be more representative of reality than, hey, John, you're getting fired for poor performance. But despite the lawsuit, days later, a district judge, Christopher Cooper, said, nope, I'm not stepping in. This guy is an Obama appointee, and he shoots down the request for a temporary injunction. And he says, this is not within my purview. I cannot even rule on this case. So he doesn't want to do it. But there's other legal cases as well, unfolding as we speak. Another one that popped up last Wednesday was suing OPM directly. They're arguing OPM doesn't have the power to order agencies to fire people. They're saying that authority belongs to Congress, and they're citing the Administrative Procedure Act. And they say the whole operation is a rogue operation. Now, in some cases, OPM has been suggesting it from the reports that we're hearing, but in other cases, you can read some correspondence from OPM, and they're saying that the agency has the authority to make their own decisions based on what's going on inside of that agency. Right now, the federal government is at 2.2 million employees. Between the deferred resignation program and the 70,000 plus who took that, and now you're looking at all of these people getting terminated who were probationary employees, you're looking at probably at least 100,000 people that will be gone from the federal government. That's before the RIFs. The RIFs are probably going to be happening, I would say, towards the end of next month. Next month, in the middle of next month, I want to say March 15th, that's the deadline for the agencies to submit their RIF plan. Once that plan is on OPM's desk, shortly after that, they're going to do some restructuring activities. You can see even more layoffs. So I think towards the end of April, you will see an increase in hiring. Right now, if you look on usajobs.gov, there's about 6,500 open jobs to the public and about 11,000 open to government employees. I think we see at least a 25% bump, even with the 1-to-4 ratio. The whole 1-to-4 ratio thing, that doesn't include immigration, it doesn't include public safety, and in some cases it doesn't include national security, and agency heads have exemption authority. They can make exemptions. So what we're going to see is right now we're probably down 100,000. Then the rifts happen. And then how many more hundreds of thousands are we going to be down? The federal government is going to be looking for workers. And the terrible thing about this situation is you're spending so much energy, effort, time, and attention tearing down the federal workforce and the federal government as an employer. You're disparaging it, right? You're disrespecting it. That's the best way you can say it. And then you're going to turn around as it's in shambles, as the smoke is coming off of the remains of the federal government. You're going to turn around and say, okay, all right, guys, you're going to look at the private sector. All right, I want your high caliber workers. Come on in here and work for us. Why would they want to work for you after you've completely dismantled and disrespected the entire federal workforce? Why would they want to join that team? Would you want to join that team? Especially when there's talks in Congress about reducing more of their benefits. There's so much action towards the federal government. If you're somebody who has skills, cybersecurity, IT, medical professional, things like that, why wouldn't you stay in the private sector, earn more money, instead of coming in here and then wondering about your future over the next 3+ years? Is your job still going to be around, or are you going to get fired and rehired all in the same week because people could not slow down and make a deliberate decision on whether or not you have value or your job has value? In other news, DOGE is getting access to sensitive data from places like the Department of Education, OPM, and the Department of Labor. The feds and the unions have tried to block this time and time again, but the federal judges are siding with DOGE. And that's because they're looking at DOGE and they're saying this is not a rogue organization. They have authority given to them by the President of the United States. And that's enough. At this point in time, that's enough. So they're gaining access to a lot of systems that they have been requesting. Now, if these firings stick, thousands of families, they're going to lose their income. They're going to lose their benefits. The government's going to lose talent. If you look in the DC area right now, the unemployment rates have already risen dramatically. Critics say that this could impact public services. You could have a crisis over there with people not getting access to some of the government services that are usually expected. So we're going to have to wait to see how that unfolds. Now, the big agency that's on the radar right now is the Department of Defense. And this is the week. This is the week where it's happening. 5,000 plus individuals are getting fired. The thing about DOD is, number one, it's the largest agency. 36% of all federal employees, they work at the DOD. They have close to 1 million people in their workforce. Second thing is large veteran population. So you're going to be impacting a lot of veterans. These are veterans that have been to Afghanistan, that have been to Iraq, that have honorable discharges. These are veterans that just not too long ago, we were praising them as war fighters, but now that they're transitioning out of uniform and they're trying to serve the federal government in another capacity, now they're at risk of getting laid off. And then another thing is you have the spouses of veterans or the spouses of active duty service members. And so these spouses currently are exempt when it comes to remote work. So there's two categories that have been largely exempt that can still be allowed to do remote work. Number one is the military spouses, as long as they are on their spouses on active duty orders and they're on those orders, they can keep doing the remote work thing most of the time. The second is reasonable accommodations. So that's disability. So those two have been fine for now. Now that could change, but you have your military spouses who are expected to pick up and move every 2 or 3 years in some cases to follow their active duty service member around the country and in some cases around the world. So this is going to impact them. The shrinking of DOD is going to impact them to some degree. In another turn of events, a federal judge did temporarily halt Trump's anti-DEI campaign. This is a temporary injunction, but it mainly focuses on the contracting side, so it stops the president from cutting contracts with companies that choose to have DEI policies. Now, within the federal government, they're still abolishing those offices, but they're saying that you can't pick and choose who you do business with simply because they have a DEI office or they have a DEI policy. We're going to find out a whole lot more in the next couple of months. But as we're waiting now and into April and later this summer, there will continue to be thousands of jobs available. It makes sense for somebody. You might be wondering, who the heck would be interested in a government job right now? There's a lot of military members still that are transitioning out. They're reaching out and they want to know more about how to get a federal government job. How do you apply competitively on usajobs.gov? If you're interested in that, and you want to know about the whole process and all the steps that go into it, I want you to check this video out next. If you need a federal resume example, check out the links down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.